Oh my goodness, you guys. So I just read this fascinating piece called We're Already in the Metaverse by Megan Garber in The Atlantic. And it's really interesting because it talks about how there's so many aspects of our culture that are super dystopian, notably like the gamification of people. The piece starts off with this harrowing look at Amazon service workers who, for this like viral TikTok challenge, were being asked to like dance in their Ring doorbell mirrors, and just how weird it is that like someone who's like doing labor for a company is then forced to like perform and dance for like the amusement of the customer. Super dystopian. But one of the things I really thought was interesting is that it kind of nailed this very eerie dystopian sense that we can't fully recognize the humanity of people on the internet, which is why so often there are like takedowns and these things that are so unhuman, right? Like instead of just having like civil dialogue with someone, you just like stitch them or make a video about how you like hate them or something. And they were giving this example of this woman who had this fibrous tumor condition that like she can't control. She's just living her life on the subway, and then someone films her without her consent and then posts it on the internet talking about like monkeypox. So what happened with that story is that woman then made a viral video in response, and then she was interviewed by the New York Times, and it was sort of like a somewhat like more positive interaction than what happens most of the time. But it was really interesting because they were using that as an example to talk about this. I'll read the quote to you. It says, "A happy ending of sorts to an otherwise grim tale of what life can be like in the metaverse. A person simply trying to get from one place to another is transformed into a reluctant star of a movie she didn't even know she was in. The dynamics are simple and stark. The people on our screens look like characters, so we begin to treat them like characters. And characters are ultimately expendable. Their purpose is to serve the story. When their service is no longer required, they can be written off the show." This article is really interesting too, because it talks about how like in real life trials, like we make TV shows of things so fast, like the Dropout with like the Elizabeth Holmes trial. And how there was jurors who like had to be excused from the jury because they had like seen episodes of the show, so they were somehow biased. And just how we start to like blend what actually happened with what happens on the TV show, because there's the movie, then there's the documentary, then there's the TV show, then there's the upcoming movie with Jennifer Lawrence, and there's the actual trial that's also happening on TV. So then it all starts to get really messy, and you're like, what actually did happen? And we're having like inundated with all of this information constantly that you could very easily get confused. Such an interesting article. Can't recommend it enough.